the cold fluorescent light of the Manhattan hotel bathroom, Carter Evans, a single father working the night shift, collided with a woman in a red dress, her blue eyes wild with panic, her hand clutching a USB drive. He had no idea she was Alexandra Sterling, the CEO the entire city was hunting for a devastating secret. Heavy footsteps pounded outside. Carter's instincts kicked in, and he stood between her and the door. In just minutes, his decision would pull them into a night of running that would change everything. The late afternoon sun slanted through the small Queen's apartment window, casting long shadows across the cluttered coffee table where 7-year-old Audrey Evans bent over her science homework. Carter watched his daughter's brow furrow in concentration, the same expression her mother used to make. He reached over, gently guiding her pencil to the right column of the worksheet. "Remember what we talked about," he said softly. "Water changes form, but it never really disappears." Audrey's face brightened with understanding, and she attacked the problem with renewed energy. Carter's phone buzzed on the counter. Manhattan Central Hotel, night shift maintenance. He sighed, moving to the closet where his work uniform hung beside his old Air Force jacket, a reminder of a different life. His toolkit sat ready by the door: flashlight, adjustable wrench, electrical tape, needle-nose pliers. Tools that fixed problems, made broken things work again. He'd added personal touches over the years. Medical tape from his military days. Zip ties, a small can of WD-40 that had saved him more times than he could count. Everything had a purpose. Everything had saved him at least once. "Dad, do I have to stay at Amanda's tonight?" Audrey asked, not looking up from her homework. "Just for a few hours, sweetheart. I'll pick you up before you wake up." He kissed the top of her head, inhaling the strawberry scent of her shampoo. Amanda from next door was already at the door, reliable as always. As Carter headed down the stairs, adjusting his tool belt, his mind wandered to the bills stacked on the kitchen counter, the parent-teacher conference next week, the 1,000 small responsibilities that filled his days. If someone had told him 5 years ago he'd be here single father, maintenance worker, living paycheck to paycheck, he would have laughed. But life had a way of rewriting your story when you weren't looking. Marie's death had shattered his trajectory, sent him spiraling from Air Force mechanic to this quiet existence. Not that he minded. Audrey was worth every sacrifice, every dream deferred. The thought followed him as he emerged onto the street. Sometimes doing the right thing meant staying small, staying safe. But sometimes, and this thought came unbidden, sometimes the world needed someone to stand up, even if they'd rather stay seated. A black sedan sat across the street, engine idling. Carter noticed it peripherally, the way he noticed everything since his military days. But his mind was already at work, thinking about the reported leak on the 32nd floor. He didn't see the small camera mounted on the dashboard, didn't see it track his movement as he descended into the subway. The Manhattan Central Hotel rose 48 floors into the New York sky, its glass face reflecting the city's ambitions back at itself. Carter entered through the service entrance, nodding to the security guard who barely looked up from his phone. The locker room smelled of industrial cleaner and old coffee. He changed quickly, muscle memory guiding him through the routine. The service elevator groaned its way to the VIP floors. 32. The doors opened to reveal marble and mahogany, the kind of luxury that whispered rather than shouted. The reported leak was in the executive bathroom, of course it was. Rich people's problems always seemed more urgent. The bathroom was a monument to excess: black marble floors, gold fixtures, mirrors that belonged in Versailles. Carter set down his toolkit, immediately spotting the problem. A loose coupling behind the toilet probably hadn't been properly sealed during installation. He'd seen it 100 times. The rich paid for appearance, not quality. He was halfway through tightening the connection when he heard rapid footsteps in the hallway, the sharp click of heels moving fast, too fast for a normal evening. The door burst open so hard it bounced off the wall. She stood there like something out of a nightmare. Or a dream-red dress, soaked with what looked like champagne, blonde hair falling loose from what had been an elegant updo. Blue eyes scanning the room like a trapped animal. Her hand clutched something small, dark. A USB drive. Carter's mind registered automatically. "Please," she gasped. And her voice carried a kind of desperation that bypassed thought and went straight to instinct. "Please." Don't let them find me. Before Carter could respond, the footsteps multiplied. Radio chatter echoed in the hallway. Targets on this floor. Northwest corner. Carter didn't think. 20 years of training kicked in. He grabbed the door, wedged it with his foot, while simultaneously reaching for the maintenance panel hidden behind the ornate mirror. Every luxury hotel had them access points for plumbing and electrical work, carefully concealed to maintain the illusion of seamless opulence. "In here," he hissed, pulling the panel free. She hesitated for exactly one heartbeat, then squeezed through the opening. Carter pushed the panel back just as the door slammed open. Henry Ward, the hotel's security chief, filled the doorway, two men in gray suits flanking him. Carter recognized the type private security, the kind that asked questions with their fists. "You see anyone come through here?" Ward's voice was tight, professional, but Carter caught the underlying tension. Carter turned slowly, wrench in hand, playing the part of the interrupted worker. "Just trying to fix this leak, man. You're letting all the cold air out." One of the gray suits pushed past Ward, checking the stalls, looking behind the door. His hand rested on something bulky under his jacket. Carter kept his breathing steady, continued loosening and tightening the same bolt. "She's not here," the suit reported. Ward's eyes lingered on Carter for a moment too long. They had history, not friendship, just the accumulated familiarity of two people who worked the same building. Ward knew Carter was solid, reliable, invisible, the perfect maintenance man. "Lock down the floor," Ward said into his radio. "She's still here somewhere." They left as suddenly as they'd arrived. Carter counted to 30, then tapped twice on the mirror. Alexandra Sterling, though he didn't know her name yet, practically fell out of the maintenance hatch, her legs shaking. "Thank you," she breathed, then looked at him properly for the first time. "You don't know what you just did." "Maybe you better tell me," Carter said, surprising himself with his calmness. "Because those weren't hotel security. Not all of them." She straightened, and despite the disheveled appearance, he saw it the bearing of someone used to command, used to being obeyed. "My name is Alexandra Sterling. I'm the CEO of Sterling Corporation." She held up the USB drive. "And this contains evidence that the mayor and deputy mayor have been stealing millions from the city." Carter's first instinct was to laugh. It sounded like something from a bad movie. But the fear in her eyes was real, and those men hadn't been playing games. "The Sterling Ledger," she continued, speaking fast. "That's what we called it internally. Every dirty contract, every kickback, every diverted fund for the last 5 years. William Brooks and Clinton Hale thought they'd buried it when they got to our board members. But I kept copies. I kept everything. And now they want you silent," Carter said. "Tomorrow morning there's a budget hearing. If this comes out before then, half the city government goes down. Clinton Hale has people everywhere. Police, private security, even here in the hotel." Carter thought of Audrey, safe at Amanda's, thought of his quiet life, his small apartment, the bills that needed paying. Then he looked at this woman, terrified but still standing, still fighting. "The USB is just a key," she said quickly. "The real data is encrypted on a backup server. But without this, without my voice authorization, it's useless. So if they get you and that drive, the truth dies," she finished, along with anyone who might have seen it. The radio in the hallway crackled again. They were doing a room-by-room search. Carter made a decision that would have seemed insane 5 minutes ago. "I know this building better than anyone," he said, grabbing his toolkit. "There's a service corridor that leads to the freight elevator. But you can't go looking like that." He pulled out his spare maintenance coveralls from the toolkit, always kept extras after too many bleach accidents. "Put this on over your dress. Keep your head down. You're new on the shift." She didn't hesitate, pulling on the coveralls with practiced efficiency. The USB disappeared into an inner pocket. Carter handed her a baseball cap from his bag. "What's your name?" she asked as he cracked the door, checking the hallway. "Carter Evans," he said. "Single father. Night shift maintenance. And apparently, really bad at minding my own business." The hallway was temporarily clear. They moved fast, but not frantically. Carter setting a pace that looked purposeful, rather than panicked. At the service corridor, he used his keycard, one of the few that opened every door in the building. They'd made it halfway to the freight elevator when footsteps echoed behind them. Carter grabbed a mop bucket from an alcove, started pushing it like he'd been doing it all night. Alexandra hunched her shoulders, made herself smaller. "Hey!" The voice was sharp, commanding. Carter turned slowly. Silas Kane stood 20 feet away, eyes narrow with suspicion. Carter had seen him before, always hovering around the VIP floors, always watching. Private security, but the kind that made regular security nervous. "New girl," Carter said, jerking his thumb at Alexandra, showing her the ropes. Silas stepped closer, hand moving inside his jacket. "All staff movements are supposed to be logged with security tonight." "Yeah, well, tell that to the toilet on 32 that's about to flood the whole floor." Carter shot back. "You want to explain to the guests why their Louboutins are floating?" For a moment, the calculation was visible on Silas's face. Then his radio crackled. "All units. Target. Possibly heading for parking level." Silas gave them one last look, then headed for the stairs. Carter didn't relax until the door slammed shut. The freight elevator was old, slow, and most importantly, not monitored by security cameras. As they descended, Alexandra pulled off the cap, her hair falling around her shoulders. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Carter thought about it, really thought about it. "Because if nobody stands up, nothing changes. And I've got a daughter who deserves better than a city built on lies." The elevator opened onto the loading dock. Rain had started, turning the alley into a river of black water and reflected neon. They could hear sirens in the distance, getting closer. "Where now?" Alexandra asked. Carter pulled out his phone, checking the subway schedule. "We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't think to look." He paused. "You trust me?" She looked at him, really looked at him. This stranger who'd risked everything for her without even knowing her name 5 minutes ago. "I don't have much choice." "There's always a choice," Carter said. "Right now, yours is whether to run alone or let me help you stay alive long enough to expose these bastards." A black SUV turned into the alley, headlights blazing. Without thinking, Carter grabbed Alexandra's hand, pulling her behind a dumpster. They pressed against the wet brick, hearts pounding in unison. The SUV prowled past. "Hunting. Together then," Alexandra whispered. Carter squeezed her hand once, then let go. "There's a subway entrance 2 blocks east. We move fast. We stay in shadows. And whatever happens, you don't let go of that drive." They ran into the rain, 2 strangers bound by circumstance and a truth that could bring down a city. Behind them, the hotel blazed with light, every floor being searched, every exit watched. But Carter knew something they didn't. Sometimes the best place to hide wasn't in the dark, but in plain sight. The subway platform was nearly empty, just a few late-night stragglers avoiding eye contact. Carter bought 2 separate tickets, different destinations, paying cash. Old habits from a different life, when avoiding surveillance meant surviving another day. "We're splitting up?" Alexandra asked, alarm flashing in her eyes. "Number misdirection." He handed her 1 ticket. "If they check the cameras, they'll see 2 tickets, 2 directions. Might buy us time." The train arrived in a screech of metal and exhaustion. They found seats in the middle car. Alexandra pressed against the window. Carter positioned to watch both doors. Normal people going home from normal jobs. That's what they needed to be. 2 stops in, his worst fears materialized. Silas Kane entered from the rear car, eyes scanning methodically. Carter didn't tense. Tension was visible. Instead, he pulled out his phone, ancient earbuds from his pocket. "Here," he said to Alexandra, offering her 1 earbud. "Helps pass the time." She understood immediately, leaning into him like they were together sharing music. Just another couple on the late-night train. Silas's eyes passed over them, lingered, moved on. 3 stops. 4. At Times Square, Carter stood suddenly. "This is us." They merged with the crowd, using the chaos of the station as cover. But Silas was following, keeping pace. Carter's mind raced through options. None of them good. Then he spotted a fire extinguisher in an emergency box. "When I say run, you run," he murmured to Alexandra. He yanked the extinguisher free, sprayed it in a wide arc. White foam exploded everywhere, people screaming, scrambling. In the chaos, he grabbed Alexandra's hand and they sprinted for the service stairs. Up, not down. Everyone always ran down. They emerged street level into the neon chaos of Times Square. Tourists everywhere despite the rain. Perfect cover, if they could blend in. But Alexandra's eyes were glazing, the adrenaline crash hitting. Carter steered her toward a 24-hour diner, the kind that asked no questions if you paid cash and tipped well. They collapsed into a back booth. Alexandra's hands shook as she reached for the coffee the waitress poured without asking. Carter kept watch on the door, cataloging exits, weapons, obstacles. "I can't believe this is happening," Alexandra said quietly. "This morning I was reviewing quarterly reports. Now I'm running for my life with a maintenance man I just met. Former Air Force," Carter corrected. "Aircraft mechanic, technical sergeant. Did 2 tours before he stopped. Doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you alive until morning." "Why morning? That's when the hearing is, right? Once you go public, killing you becomes pointless. It's only revenge then, not prevention." Alexandra studied him over her coffee cup. "You've done this before. Not this exactly, but something like it." "Different life," Carter said simply. Then his phone buzzed. Amanda, checking if he'd be back on schedule. The normal world, continuing without him. "I need to make a call." He stepped outside, keeping Alexandra in sight through the window. Amanda answered on the second ring. "Hey, it's me. Listen, something came up at work. Pipe burst, real mess. Can Audrey stay the night?" "Of course, Carter. She's already asleep. Everything okay?" He watched through the window as a police car rolled slowly past, searchlight sweeping. "Yeah. Everything's fine. Kiss her goodnight for me." When he returned to the booth, Alexandra had her phone out, staring at it like it might bite. "I should call Serena," she said. "My CFO. She needs to know." "They're probably monitoring her phone," Carter interrupted. "Anyone you'd normally call, they're watching." She set the phone down, defeated. "So I'm alone." "No," Carter said firmly. "You're not." The diner door chimed. 2 men in suits entered, scanning the room. Not Silas's men. Different energy. Government, maybe. Carter stood smoothly. Back exit, through the kitchen. "Move." They slipped through the swinging doors. Past a surprised cook. Out into an alley that reeked of rotting garbage and broken dreams. The rain had stopped, leaving everything slick and gleaming. Carter led them through a maze of back streets, using every trick he knew to break their trail. Double backs, subway entrances they didn't use, security cameras he disabled with electrical tape from his pocket, always fixing things, even when breaking them. Finally, he brought them to a place he'd hoped never to need, a storage unit in Brooklyn he'd rented years ago, paid up for emergencies. Inside, emergency supplies, cash, a burner phone, even some of Marie's old clothes he'd never been able to throw away. Alexandra collapsed on a crate, exhaustion written in every line of her body. Carter checked his watch. 3 hours until dawn. 3 hours to figure out how to get her to that hearing alive. "There's a contact," Alexandra said suddenly. "Gwen Ortiz, investigative reporter. She's been digging into the city contracts for months. If we could get to her, can you trust her? I don't know who to trust anymore." She pulled out the USB, staring at it. "Nathan Pierce, board member. He said he'd help." Maybe gets you killed," Carter said bluntly. "We need certainty." His phone rang. Unknown number. Every instinct screamed not to answer, but something made him pick up. Nice disappearing act. Silas's voice was calm, almost friendly. "But we have cameras everywhere, Carter." "Oh yes. We know who you are now. Air Force Technical Sergeant Carter Evans, widower. Father to sweet little Audrey." Carter's blood turned to ice. "She's safe," Silas continued. "For now. But that could change. Give us Sterling and the drive, and you can go back to your small life. 1 hour. Or we start looking closer at your family. The line went dead. Carter stood frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear. What is it? Alexandra asked, reading his face. They know who I am. They mentioned my daughter. Without hesitation, Alexandra stood, holding out the USB. Take it. Trade me for her safety. I won't let a child suffer for my fights. Carter looked at the drive, then at her. This woman who 5 hours ago was a stranger, now offering to sacrifice herself for his family. No, he said. They're bluffing. Audrey's with Amanda, 3 floors up. Interior apartment. They'd have to go through half the building to get to her. And if they touch her, his voice went cold. Dangerous. They'll learn what I learned in Afghanistan about making problems disappear. He pulled out the burner phone, dialed a number from memory. 3 rings. Then a gravelly voice answered. Henry? It's Carter. Yeah. I know what time at Island. Listen. I need a favor. That thing in the sub-basement you asked me to forget I saw? I'm calling it in. He hung up, turned to Alexandra. Henry Ward owes me. Found him skimming from the hotel 2 years ago, didn't report it in exchange for a favor. He's about to discover that his security team has been compromised by Silas, that his job's on the line. He'll keep them busy. You planned for this? I fix things for a living. Sometimes that means knowing what might break. He checked his watch again. We need to move. There's someone who might help, but it's risky. They left the storage unit as the first hints of dawn touched the sky. The city was waking up. Normalcy, returning like a tide. But nothing was normal anymore. Might never be again. Carter led them to an old library in Queens, the kind that still had paper files and librarians who remembered when. It would open in an hour, but Carter knew the service entrance, knew the old security guard who owed him for fixing his car off the books. They waited in the basement archives, surrounded by the smell of old paper and forgotten stories. Alexandra dozed fitfully on his shoulder, trusting him to keep watch. He let her sleep, knowing what was coming. At exactly 7, she jerked awake. The hearing's at 9. I know. I've been thinking. You can't just walk in there. They'll be waiting. But if we could broadcast it somehow, make it public before you even arrive. Gwen, Alexandra said immediately. If we could get to her, she could stream it live. Multiple platforms, no way to stop it all. Carter nodded. But first, we need to know who else is compromised. You mentioned Nathan Pierce, board member. He promised to back me when I found the evidence. He's the only one who knew I had it. Then we test him, Carter said. But, carefully, Alexandra called Nathan from the burner phone, putting it on speaker. His voice was warm, concerned. Alex, thank God. Where are you? Everyone's looking. I'm safe, Nathan. I have the drive. Can you meet me? Of course. Where? She gave him the library address. After hanging up, Carter shook his head. Too eager. And he didn't ask if you were hurt. Just where you were. 20 minutes later, they watched from the window as Nathan arrived with Henry Ward and Silas Kane. The betrayal on Alexandra's face was like watching something break in real time. He sold me out, she whispered. To save the company, he sold me out. They slipped out the back as Nathan and his escorts entered the front. Time was running out, options disappearing. Then Alexandra's phone, her real phone, buzzed with a text from Gwen Ortiz. Know you're in trouble. Can help. Real help. Carter was suspicious, but they were out of options. The meeting place was public, a coffee shop in Midtown, busy enough for safety. They arrived to find Gwen already there. Laptop open, equipment ready. Stream goes live in 30 minutes, she said without preamble. Every platform I have access to. You talk, I broadcast. They can't stop it all. Why help me? Alexandra asked. Because the story needs telling. And because Gwen pulled out a folder. I've been documenting this for 2 years. I just needed someone with inside knowledge to confirm it. They set up in the back corner. Alexandra pulled out the USB, took a breath, and began to speak. She laid it all out: the contracts, the kickbacks, the shell companies, names, dates, amounts. The sterling ledger in all its damning glory. 5 minutes in, Clinton Hale himself walked through the door. He moved with the confidence of a man who'd never lost, flanked by security. But Gwen kept broadcasting. Alexandra kept talking. The coffee shop patrons pulled out their phones, recording everything. "Miss Sterling," Clinton said smoothly, "this is unfortunate. Lies and slander won't help anyone. Then sue me." Alexandra shot back. "In open court. Under oath." Clinton's smile faltered. He stepped forward, but Carter stood, placing himself between them. For a moment, they measured each other, the politician and the maintenance man. "You're nobody," Clinton said dismissively. "A nobody interfering in things you don't understand." "Maybe," Carter agreed. "But I'm a nobody who knows that main power coupling for this block runs through the utility room downstairs. And I'm a nobody who might have just triggered the fire suppression system. As if on cue, the sprinklers activated. Water everywhere. People screaming, running. In the chaos, Clinton's security tried to grab Alexandra, but Carter had already pulled her toward the exit. Gwen saved her equipment, still broadcasting through her phone. They burst onto the street, where news vans were already arriving. Someone had seen the stream, called the media. Cameras everywhere. Reporters shouting questions. Clinton emerged, soaked and furious, to find himself surrounded by microphones. Alexandra stood tall, water streaming down her face, and spoke directly to the cameras. "I'm Alexandra Sterling, and I'm on my way to City Hall to provide evidence of the largest corruption scandal in New York history. William Brooks, Clinton Hale, and their associates have stolen millions from the people of this city." She held up the USB like a talisman. "The proof is here, and on servers that can't be destroyed. The truth will out." The crowd surged forward: reporters, police, citizens who'd been watching online. Clinton tried to retreat, but found FBI agents waiting. The stream had done its job. Federal authorities had been watching too. In the chaos, Nathan Pierce appeared, trying to reach Alexandra. "I was trying to protect the company," he pleaded. "You don't understand what they threatened." She turned away, disgust clear on her face. But Carter saw the hurt underneath, the betrayal that cut deep. They were escorted to City Hall in a convoy of federal vehicles. The hearing had been postponed, turned into something else entirely. A reckoning. Alexandra testified for 3 hours. Every detail, every crime. The USB was entered into evidence, its contents verified by federal forensic accountants. By noon, Clinton Hale was in custody. By 1, William Brooks had resigned. By 2, half the city government was under investigation. Carter watched from the back of the room, invisible again, the way he preferred it. But when Alexandra finished testifying, she found him in the crowd. "Thank you," she said simply. "You did the hard part," he replied, standing up when it would have been easier to stay down. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you rebuild. The company, the city's trust. It's what you do after the breaking that matters." His phone buzzed. Amanda, saying Audrey was asking for him. The normal world, calling him home. "I should go," he said. "Carter, wait." Alexandra pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. "My personal number. In case you ever need anything." He took the card, knowing he'd never call. They were from different worlds, brought together by extraordinary circumstances that were already fading. But 3 days later, his doorbell rang. Alexandra stood there, not in a power suit but in jeans and a sweater, holding a bag of takeout and a children's art set. "I thought Audrey might like these," she said. "And I thought you might be tired of cooking." Audrey appeared behind him, curious. "Dad, who's the pretty lady?" "A friend," Carter said, surprised to find it was true. "Someone who helped me remember that standing up is worth it, even when sitting down is safer." They ate Chinese food on the living room floor, Audrey showing Alexandra her drawings, chattering about school and friends and dreams. Alexandra listened with genuine interest. This woman who ran boardrooms and negotiated millions, sitting cross-legged on stained carpet, helping a 7-year-old color inside the lines. "Why did you really come?" Carter asked later, after Audrey had gone to bed. "Because I realized something," Alexandra said. "I've spent my whole life surrounded by people who wanted things from me. You're the first person in years who wanted nothing except for me to be safe." "That's not nothing," Carter said. "No," she agreed. "It's everything." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd been through fire together and come out changed. Outside, New York hummed with its eternal energy, unaware that its foundations had shifted, that truth had won a battle, if not the war. Weeks turned to months. The investigation widened. More arrests were made. Alexandra rebuilt Sterling Corporation from the ground up, installing Serena Voss as co-CEO, bringing in new board members who understood that profit without principle was bankruptcy of a different kind. Gwen Ortiz won a Pulitzer for her coverage, finally vindicated after years of digging. She never revealed Carter's name, only referring to him as a maintenance worker who maintained more than just buildings. Henry Ward testified against Silas Kane in exchange for immunity, his small corruptions forgiven in light of bigger fish. Silas got 20 years, unrepentant to the end. Nathan Pierce lost everything: his position, his reputation, his wealth consumed by legal fees. He sent Alexandra letter after letter, seeking forgiveness that wouldn't come. And Carter? He kept working nights at the Manhattan Central Hotel, fixing leaks and broken locks, and problems that had solutions. But now Alexandra would visit, sometimes with expensive coffee, sometimes with simple sandwiches from the deli down the street. She'd sit on overturned buckets in maintenance rooms, talking about her day, listening to his. Two people from different worlds, finding common ground in uncommon circumstances. One evening, 6 months after that night in the bathroom, Alexandra found Carter on the hotel's roof, looking out over the city. "Audrey asked me something today," she said, joining him at the railing. "Oh?" "She asked if I was going to marry you." Carter nearly choked. "I'm sorry. I'll talk to her about boundaries." "I told her I didn't know," Alexandra interrupted. "That some things take time to figure out. That the best things usually do." She took his hand, calloused from work, steady from purpose. "I've been thinking about that night, about what you said. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing up. But sometimes it means standing still, letting something grow. Alexandra, I know we're different. I know it's complicated. But complicated doesn't mean impossible." Carter turned to face her fully. This woman who'd crashed into his life in a moment of chaos, who'd trusted him with her life, who'd slowly become essential to his days. "I'm not an easy man to be with," he said. "I come with baggage. With a daughter who has to come first. With a life that's smaller than what you're used to." "Maybe I need smaller," she said. "Maybe I need real." He kissed her then. There on the rooftop with the city spread below them like a carpet of lights. Not the city they'd run through in fear, but one they'd helped make better, cleaner, more honest. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Audrey was the flower girl, beaming as she scattered petals. Gwen was there, camera in hand, but for once not broadcasting, just capturing moments for memory. Even Amanda from next door came, wiping tears and claiming allergies. They bought a house in Queens, nothing fancy, just enough. Alexandra would leave for Sterling Corporation each morning in her power suits, and Carter would kiss her goodbye in his maintenance uniform. Two worlds, one life. Audrey had two parents now, someone to help with homework and someone to teach her that strength came in many forms. She grew up knowing that truth mattered, that standing up was worth it, that sometimes the most extraordinary things happened in the most ordinary places, like a bathroom in a Manhattan hotel, where a single father bumped into a CEO and changed everything. Years later, when people asked how they met, Alexandra and Carter would share a look, a smile that held secrets and promises, and the memory of one impossible night. "We ran into each other," Alexandra would say. "She was having a bad day," Carter would add. "He helped me fix it," she'd conclude. And that was true enough for anyone who hadn't been there. who hadn't run through the rain with truth in their pocket and justice at their heels. The full story was theirs alone, a reminder that sometimes the universe put people exactly where they needed to be, even when that place was a marble bathroom with bad plumbing and perfect timing. In the end, the city survived its scandal. New politicians promised reform. Some even meant it. The Sterling Corporation became a model for ethical business, proof that profit and principle could coexist. And in a house in Queens, a family that shouldn't exist by any logical measure thrived on the illogical truth that love was just another problem that could be fixed with the right tools, the right timing, and the courage to stand up when everyone else would rather sit down. The USB drive sat in a safety deposit box, a monument to one night when everything changed. But the real monument was quieter Sunday dinners and homework help, shared coffee in the morning, and whispered conversations at night. A daughter who grew up believing in justice because she'd seen it happen, a marriage built on the foundation of two strangers who'd decided to trust each other with everything. And sometimes, on quiet nights, Carter would fix something in their house, a leaky faucet, a squeaky door, and Alexandra would watch from the doorway, remembering the man who'd fixed more than just pipes, who'd helped repair a broken city with nothing but courage and